All right, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for our alumni panel, Centering Alumni Voices and Creating Community as a part of our diversity development series. It is a pleasure to have all of you with us. Obviously, there is so much going on that all of us are trying to manage and balance. So I'm very appreciative, and I extend a lot of gratitude to those of you that chose to join us this evening. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Megan Pugh. I'm the Assistant Director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs here at UNC Asheville, and I will be your host this evening, although my hope is that I talk a lot less than our fantastic panelists, so just bear with me for a couple of more minutes. But before we jump into our panelist introductions, I first want to take a moment to recognize the group of folks that really helped all of this come together, and then go over some quick announcements. So this event series is brought to you by the hard work and collaboration of the Office of Multicultural Affairs, the UNC Asheville Alumni Association, and University Advancement. And like I said, just real quick, I want to take a moment to call those folks by name. So myself, great. Luke Givens, Rasharia Keller, and the following UNC Asheville alumni. David Green, Elizabeth Saxman Underwood, who you'll see here on our screen, is our co-host. Glennis Holloway, Kenya Edwards, and Stephanie Watkins Cruz. You all don't have to turn your videos on, but I definitely did want to take the time to recognize you all really quickly, because had it not been for these folks, none of this would have come together. So again, thank you very much, and I appreciate all of your work. Some other UNC Asheville Alumni Association Board of Directors members that are on the call right now are Heather Quinn and Cynthia Shah Khan. So thank you for joining us. And then we also have several faculty and staff attending this evening as well. So thank you all again for everything that you do for the university and for attending. Very quick announcements. So this event is being recorded, including the Q&A, because we are going to release this recording on the Office of Multicultural Affairs' YouTube page, hopefully in the next week. So we will share that link with you all at the end of our session to find that page. And then finally, you all, I believe, should see 3 options for questions at the bottom of your screen: raise hand, chat, and the Q&A box. We ask that you put any questions for the panelists either in the Q&A box or the chat box, and we will ask all of those at the end. So to help facilitate that Q&A portion of tonight's event, please be sure to include the name of the panelist that you'd like to respond to your question. Well, that's it for me. So now I would like to give the floor over to our outstanding panelists who will introduce themselves to you, and we will start with Dr. Marquis Mcgee.
Hello, everybody. Greetings from the International Space Station. Actually, I'm not there, but I like to think I'm out of this world, so I like this Zoom background. I'm Marquis Mcgee. I use pronouns he, him, and his. I am the wonderful graduate of the class of '99, and my major was psychology with a biology minor. My current role right now is I'm serving as the Associate Director of University Advising, where I work and train faculty members to work with individuals or students in particular at the university. And why I chose to participate here, one, it is my duty to always give back to those, because someone did the same for me. And when we were, the time that I was here at UNCA, we had alumni who would come back and help us and give us points of view, inspiration as well, to be able to be successful. So for me, I look at it as returning the favor. I also want to make sure that even though I don't know any of you yet, I want you to know that I'm here to be of service to you. And we have people here who are ready to support you to make sure that you are successful at UNCA and beyond. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Karita Steverson. My pronouns are she and her. I graduated from UNCA in 2005 with a degree in political science and international management. I currently work for Eaton here in the Fletcher, Avery Creek area as an account coordinator in electrical manufacturing. But I'm also working on a concept here in Asheville that I hope you guys will get to take a look at called Conscious, that allows you to vote with your purchasing power. And why I chose to participate in the panel is very personal. So if my mom is here, because she was going to try and tune in, when I left for college, my mom said she was happier I left than she was, or that I was. But she also said that I didn't know I was Black until I got to UNCA. And not because anything negative happened, but because of the community that was available to me once I got to school here. So for me, it's important to always participate and give back whenever asked, as long as it fits in the schedule.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amarra, pronouns she and her. I graduated in 2012 from UNC Asheville, and my major was mass communication with a concentration in journalism, which I worked as a journalist for almost 6 years before I transitioned to corporate America. I now work as a product owner for Wells Fargo here in the Charlotte area. Why I chose to participate in this panel, again, kind of echoing everyone else's thoughts, it was a way for me to give back to a community that helped me really find my voice, kind of piggybacking off of the last panelist saying I didn't really realize, I always realized I was a little bit, different than everyone else, but just enabling my voice and just having a really great support system at UNC Asheville, even though I was a very small minority as a Muslim on campus back in 2012. So just help, people there really helped me kind of find my space there. And this is just a great way to kind of talk about that experience, and all those people who are watching who feel different, whether ethnicity or religious wise or whatever makes you feel like you are someone else. There is a support system, even though it's a smaller space, it's a smaller school, but just a way for me to give back and kind of talk about my experience there.
All right, hey everybody, my name is Maya Newlin, graduate of class of 2016. I use she and her pronouns as well. I was a political science sociology double major with a minor in Africana studies on a pre-med track when I was at UNC Asheville. Currently, I live in Charlotte. I work for Apple as my role is kind of combined. So I'm a technical expert and I do community outreach in regards to public health for us, really centered around the Apple Watch. And the reason I chose to participate in this is because I wish something like this had happened when I was in school. I didn't really touch an alum, a Black alum, put it that way, until homecoming. Freshman year, and it was repeated every year until I really started forming community with people who had already graduated from the university, unless they were working for the school. So that's why I chose to participate.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim. My pronouns are he, him, his. I graduated in 2018, not that long ago. My major was psychology. I'm currently a complex director in the Office of Housing and Residence Life at Emory University here in Atlanta. I oversee 2 second-year social justice themed communities. And I guess I chose to participate for a combination of all the reasons that everybody else shared. Like, I feel like I really enjoy these type of events. I feel like it's important to give back to a place that gave so much to me. I also feel like I had a very strong alumni support system, like in Maya and Stephanie Watkins Cruz. So it's really important for me to be able to serve in that way for current students.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I hope you all who are watching are as excited to hear these folks give their perspective on some things as I am. So now we are going to jump into our actual panel discussion. So again, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat box or the Q&A, specifying who you want to answer those, and we will begin. So my first question for the panel is, how did you create community during your time as a student at UNC Asheville, and what impact did that have on your experience?
So I would say that I was able to build community through campus involvement, and then my sort of residential community. So my first group of friends came from my residence hall. And then from there, it just sort of expanded from being able to get involved in different areas of campus, in alumni advancement, in the call center, and then being an RA, and all of those different things. So I would say that without those things, I wouldn't be in the job that I am today. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today, because that's sort of where my interest in higher education came from, through meaningful engagement and involvement, and wanting to sort of make those connections for other students.
So my experience was like the opposite of Tim's. I worked full time when I was at UNCA. I lived off campus with my father, and worked for my family business. But what I did was I joined a sorority, and I'm still active in that sorority 20 years later as an alum. But when I got there, I can say that the recruitment process was a little daunting and a little scary. And there was one other person that looked like me that was participating. But it turned out to be one of the best things in my life. And like, my sorority sister's daughter was my flower girl in my wedding 20 years later. So don't be afraid, I would say, to try the things that don't look like we're being represented, because we're probably not being represented because there aren't that many of us, not because they don't want us there.
I also had a similar experience. I think I was a transplant student, so I am coming as like a almost third year student. One, I really look different than everyone around me, kind of similar thoughts like everyone else. And my involvement really became because I started to seek out, there has to be other Muslims on campus that I don't know about, maybe where they're hiding somewhere. And so I was the first person to start the Muslim Student Association at Asheville. And I had a blast. I mean, like, all the MSAs around the country are probably like obviously very heavily Muslim oriented and in Muslim involvement. For me, we had probably 3 Muslims in the entire organization, and everyone else was a non-Muslim. We had people on the board who didn't even affiliate with religion, who probably never met a Muslim person before. And it was just a lot of learning from each other. The person who not our guidance counselor, but the person who oversees the entire group, you have to have a faculty. He was a Mormon. So it was really the Muslim Student Association, but it was really like a very huge interfaith effort. And really I didn't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to be a person who is so involved in different activities. I was trying to get myself situated. I didn't have a car, so I wasn't living on campus. So it was a crazy experience for me. And then I just had the right people around me. I still remember Robert Straub. He is I don't know if he's still there, but he is amazing, and shout out to him, because he really enabled my voice. And you don't go in sometimes thinking, oh, because I'm different now, I have to be like a spokesperson for my community. But it was more of just really like cultivating this care and the support. Like, hey, you have a voice here, find who your folks are. But my experience was really just very non-traditional in every sense of the word. And that's kind of where my intuition for community building and community engagement started. Because right here in Charlotte, what I do here, I run a nonprofit called Welcome Home, which helps with relief for refugees in the area. So that really helped me enable a community for folks who are a minority and who kind of just need to find their own. So really that's where I feel like my involvement really started, just having a really good support system in that way.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. This is kind of echoing what Tim said. A lot of my community building was from campus engagement. I had a different experience coming into college. I was pretty stressed out. I didn't even know I was going to go to college because of finances. So I did end up working outside of campus throughout almost my entire tenure at school, in addition to what I was doing on campus. But I would say I specifically remember my first day of class, really setting the tone of what I ended up doing throughout the rest of my 4 years in school. He's not there anymore, but Dr. Lamar Hilton, we used to have freshman colloquium classes. I don't know if we all remember those. But I walked into his class and he had on this bright periwinkle suit. He was sitting in the middle of a classroom in the basement of Carpin. And I walked in as the only Black student in the classroom, and he's like, Maya. And I'm like, who are you? And how do you know my name? And he really took me under his wing, and he knew me because Stephanie Watkins Cruz was my orientation leader, and she physically drug me to the Intercultural Center during orientation and had me sign up for a program called Connections Peer Mentoring. And I credit Connections to all of the community building that I did when I was in school, because that really set the tone. Our initial retreat, I pretty much met all of the Black people that were going to be involved on campus for the rest of the 4 years. And we really created a bond there. And it just continued. And I became more involved in different organizations, student government, cheer and dance. Like, I was a basketball player, obviously, because I'm tall, when I was in high school. Never thought I'd be in cheer and dance, but joining that community as well. So I would just say a culmination of people looking out for me, even when I didn't know that they were, and knowing me before I even knew them, and then taking the initiative myself to really try new things and to push myself.
Yeah, and for me, since I'm in the 20th century here, going to school, we had, UNCA had a preview weekend back then for students of color. And so we were able to kind of try out UNCA, meet people who were there currently, and get a feel for if it would be a good fit for us. So when I got to school, I was looking for those same people. As soon as I got to UNCA to form a group. That preview weekend allowed us to stay in contact. It usually happened around March. So we stayed in contact throughout the summer, and that really allowed us to form a bond. And so that continued to happen after my class, and our group just stayed together. My wife is also an alum of UNC Asheville, and their group, they were called the Click. And they did everything together, they stuck together. And of course, eventually you start doing other things with other groups, but that was a way to stay connected. And then we had the James and the Mullins. They're not there anymore, but you may see them from time to time. They were professors who really stood out to make sure we felt like we were at home as well. And then folks in the dining hall, they made us feel comfortable. The housekeepers, even those who worked in maintenance, they made us feel like we were a part of a family. So that was a way to stay connected. And then just get involved. And so I'll stop after that so we can ask more questions.
Okay, so thank you all for that. Sort of in the spirit of things that you were sharing, my next question for you all is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to current students about building connections and building community? You know, I think so often we have folks who feel like they don't, they're in isolation. They feel like maybe they don't know anyone, or they're not comfortable getting to know other people. So, we are in a very different time right now, but what advice would you give to current students about really creating that support system for themselves?
Well, I would say when people tell you to reach out to them, to actually reach out to them. I think I, for a very long time, assumed that people said that as lip service because they're participating in this program and they're supposed to tell us that, but we mean it. And I think that the majority of people who graduate from UNCA mean it. There's a reason that people choose that college as their home.
I think I agree wholeheartedly. The same thing. And also, sometimes you get so afraid of your idea. Oh, it sucks, or oh, other people are doing it. But I think UNCA really celebrates a competition of ideas. So even if you have something that already exists, just go out and try out the Multicultural Center or wherever your idea could exist and just see if it does. Because most of the times, it really doesn't. And the way you're going to do it is different than how it's already being done. So really take the chance because you have the opportunity. We don't, where you're not going to a school of like 100,000 kids where your voice might get lost in that. And I really think people need to really capitalize off that opportunity. So that's what I would say. Just if you have an idea, just see if it even exists and see if it's there, and you will get connected to the right people.
I would say to find the space that allows you to flourish authentically. So not feeling like you have to force community or have to be something that you're not. I feel like there's so many sub-communities in like the greater UNC Asheville community. And if you don't feel like you fit into one of those, like Amarra was saying, like create your own, build your own, and let others find you. I would also say that the first community you join doesn't have to be the only community that you're a part of. I would also suggest being open to others reaching out to you and tapping you on the shoulder and things like that. I will never forget the day that when Maya Newlin pulled me into her office, sat me down and watched me fill out the application to be student body vice president. And like, I look back on that moment so fondly because it literally changed the trajectory of my like campus experience. So being open to like others seeing things in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself.
Yeah, I'll go next. The 3 words that I wrote down for this question was be fearless, be intentional, and timing. I know a lot of people come into college and you're already trailblazers and you're ready to hit the ground running, but the 4 years or 5, some of us 3, the time that you have at UNC Asheville is a very special place. It's a very special university. And I know personally, I didn't understand that until I was done. I did post-bac work at UNC Charlotte, and they're 2 hours away, but they are in worlds far apart. So allow yourself to make mistakes, allow yourself to be told no, because it's not going to be the end of the world. Because the worst that can happen is that you get told no and you try something different. Like, I started off as an alternate on the cheer and dance team. I ended up as captain my final year. So there's going to be space for you. There's going to be time for you. And to echo what everybody just said, like, you just have to, Stephanie, you just have to give yourself the opportunity. Try to find those places where you're most uncomfortable, because that's probably where you need to do the most growth, and just try to explore it from there.
When I came to UNCA, I'm still an introvert, but I came there intentionally wanting to sort of be different than what I was at home, and that was kind of being sheltered, not really doing anything. And so, I piggyback on Maya to be intentionally exploring ways in which you can be involved on campus, but also what Tim said is not changing who you are, being true to yourself and who you are. And that's a great thing about UNCA. There are so many groups. You don't see it, again, as they said, you can form your own group if you want to, but continue to be who you are, and be willing to grow as an individual.
So now, thinking of some reflection, some reminiscing, what do you wish you would have known as an undergraduate at UNC Asheville, and what might you have done differently? 2020, no, what is it? Hindsight is 2020. So what does your hindsight tell you? What might you have done differently and wish you would have known?
I'll start. I wish I would have known the difference between over-involvement and intentional involvement. I felt like, I wish someone would have told me that busy is not always beneficial. And that was definitely something that I thought in undergrad, that in order to be seen as, accomplished or competent or whatever, that I needed to constantly be busy and I needed to be involved in anything that I possibly could have been. And although I think I did them well, I think that there's often a misconception that you have to build your resume in college, and that's not always the case. Like, I think in many cases it's very impactful to do 1 or 2 things very well than to try and manage several other things that go poorly. So I think I wish I would have known that I had time to spread things out over the 4 years, that I didn't necessarily have to try and juggle everything at one time.
Yeah, for me, it would be to ask questions. I came in with this illusion that, you reached the pinnacle of being in higher ed or education. And so you should know it all, right? You should know it. You're the best of the best of the best. But it was that was far from the truth. So I was hesitant to ask questions. So asking questions, asking a lot of questions often. I had a chance to create or be one of the co-founders of a group called Brothers Unified Achieving, which was a group of African-American males who tackled on issues on campus and in the community related to the African-American community. And so I wish I had started that a lot earlier, because I think we could have had a huge, even bigger impact than we did before I graduated. And then also not to be so perfect. Like I came in being a perfectionist, wanting to be a perfectionist at everything that I did, and realized later on it just caused a lot of headache, and it wasn't necessary to be perfect. You need to be perfect if you're building a bridge. You don't need to be perfect if you're in college.
Yeah, I wish I had made use of the resources that we got in regards to mental health. I gave campus tours and I preached and preached. Oh, we get 12 free sessions to all of the parents, all of the incoming students. You all need to go and see Jay. The new office is down the hill. And I went once out of my entire 4 years. And I was someone who was very, very busy. I mean, I'd be waking up at 6 o'clock, go to the gym and practice dances, go to class, go to meetings throughout the day, trustee meetings. And then I would go to Gap that afternoon until 10 o'clock at night and do everything over again. And just being able to reflect back, I know I was very busy, but I put myself in situations a lot of times so that I wouldn't have to emotionally deal with what needed to be dealt with. And when you get older, it hits you. So taking the time to really discover who I was as a person, in addition to building myself up, like skill-wise, in college is something that I would have done. So go down the hill, go visit Jay.
Thank y'all. One thing that I just very quickly want to recognize is that all of this stuff is so timely, right? We look at, class years and we think, oh, they could never have experienced these things that I'm experiencing. And so I really appreciate you all sharing those things, because it shows our students now, oh, these things just continue. This is a part of this experience, and it's a part of it for everybody, even folks who have gone on to graduate and now do, all of these things that I think as a student you dream about and you think, oh, this might not be possible for me. And so I really, really appreciate you all's transparency around that, because I do think it's important for our students to see that for sure. So we have 2 questions left. So one thing that we wanted to do with this series was be very intentional about creating connections between current students of color and graduates of color, because we recognize that social capital is a thing that we all have to have. And for POC, often that's not something that we have in abundance. And so I wanted to make sure that our students not just saw or didn't just see other students of color, or in this case, graduates of color, in front of them, but also had a means to connect with them. And so my question for all of you is, how do you sort of in your current life space stay connected to the university as alum?
So I actually am one of the advisors for Alpha Xi Delta, the sorority on campus. So you will find me there when you guys are there, generally every Sunday night for their meetings.
Yep. For me, it's staying in touch. I'm usually there for homecoming, celebrations, any type of research. I still have students there because I've worked at UNCA twice. So I still have students who are currently there doing research. I stay in touch with them, social media in that way. And then the faculty and staff. So I still have a close connection with them. So I don't think I'm ever gonna go away unless they push me away.
I would say mostly through social media, staying connected to the students that I know that still go there. My first year class when I was an RA, they're all graduated now. But visiting when I can for homecoming, things like that. Staying connected to my mentors and now colleagues, friends, things like that. Because I feel like sustaining community is just as important as building it. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I say I continue my engagement. I'm more of a mentor than I am, what I have time for now, more of a mentor. So doing what I did when I was on campus, I lurk current students. I know who most of you are through social media. And I try to reach out when I can to see if there's anything that I can do. And then still going back for homecoming and things. And I will say that it's imperative that this happens, that we stay connected to the people that are there now, even when you all graduate, because as you can hear, things that we went through, you all are going through. And Asheville has a habit of reinventing the wheel over and over and over and over again, because we never reach back and pull people with us. So with this conversation being had with this program, I'm hoping that it's going to spark something within all of us and that we continue this.
I would say this conversation itself is really inspiring me to kind of give back even more. I feel like I moved out of North Carolina and for a brief time, and so it was hard for me to connect and come back and kind of contribute. So just listening to all of you right now is just like, oh crap, I should probably be available to the students there and who are going through that similar path. And I will kind of piggyback of what everyone said about mental health. I think sometimes you just kind of disconnect yourself from that space because on my last year, I was taking 19 credits and running in a student organization and doing everything else. And I think that was such a big burnout. And again, it was like, no, this is my timeline. I have to graduate. There's nothing, not that there's nothing waiting for you on the other side, but there's nothing to be like take your time. This is, I didn't answer the question before, sorry to go kind of backtrack, but this is your time to really understand your purpose, see where you're at. And it's okay if it takes you 5-6 years, like whatever's waiting for you it won't miss you. So whatever is there will get to you when you need to get to it. So really just be where you are, be present, and take advantage of the resources that are available to you. And sorry, I went backtrack and answered a question, but kind of just inspired from everyone else's commentary.
Karita, did you have anything to share? I didn't want to make sure I didn't skip over you. Okay, cool. All right. And then our last question of the evening until we open it up to our audience is, well, most of you spoke to this, all of you spoke to this really. Why is it important for you as a graduate of UNC Asheville to connect and have relationships with current students? We have a lot of alum who maybe aren't as connected with you all or aren't connected in the formal ways, right? So through the Alumni Association or, other things like that. And so for the alumni on the call, I would like for you all to share, why do you feel like it's important for you all to stay connected, even if it's not through those official channels?
I kind of want to echo what everyone said. I think it was the first question of how did we build community and how did we become involved? And all of it had to do with the connection that we made to somebody who was there before us. We can't move forward unless we have each other. My involvement stemmed from other Black students, Black faculty, and Black staff, because they took the time out of their day based off of their lived experiences, specifically in Asheville and on our campus, to try to prevent that from happening to somebody else. Stephanie drugged me to the Intercultural Center, like physically. Lamar Hilton drugged me to Highsmith to apply for jobs within student organizations. The Mullins, the Jameses, all of the work that they did in their classroom, they are why we need to continue the work, because without it, like State of Black Asheville, all of that work has to continue, and we need to give it breath and we need to give it life, because without us continuing it, we're not giving all of their work justice. So that's what I think.
And also, to kind of piggyback of what you said, Maya, sometimes you don't know what communities are going to kind of relate to each other. You never know. You might think, oh, I'm not of this certain ethnicity or this certain religious affiliation or sexual orientation or whatever it is, but those communities will bridge together, especially when there's an underlying cause. I remember when we held the Black Student Association and the Muslim Student Association held a walk and a rally when Trayvon Martin was murdered in Florida, and we had our first Black Lives Matter rally. And back then, it was just the start of those social justice movements, and it was it was like, how does the Muslim Student Association, the Latino Student Association, the Black Student Association, what can they, how do they even unite together? So you never know that what other communities, like how you can support each other and what that means, and how important that is for a campus to see that these communities of color are coming together, and there's other facets that we can really unite on, and it doesn't always have to be a social justice movement. It could be different variety of different ways, and that was one thing that it's just, I'm kind of going down memory lane. The whole point of the Muslim Student Association was not just, it started off just finding, who the other Muslim people are, where are my people, but then it kind of started, became even bigger. Like, how are we teaching the people who maybe have never, encountered somebody, a person of color, of this person from this community and this and that. So you never know what kind of bridges what gaps you're filling. So really, just being involved and staying involved. You don't want it to kind of fall off all your hard work, but really, like, don't think like that all falls on your shoulder, but just know that there are other communities that can, you can bridge together and work together on so many different things. So this is thank you so much for having this event, and anyone who's like kind of like in that space, just know that there is support. And I know I'm repeating myself, but really you are in a very special place where it's small enough for you to be recognized. So you don't have to go at great lengths and be absolutely great at something. You can be kind of mediocre, but also well-intentioned, and your idea will cultivate into something bigger that you wouldn't know. So really take advantage of that.
Yeah, just to piggyback, or in addition to what I said earlier, it was helpful for me to see someone that looked like me, that came back to talk to us during my time as an undergraduate, to give us piece of advice. And so, I want to do the same. I want you all to see that, hey, there are other people who've been through the trenches, the challenges of that, but also those who are there to support you. And so that's why I think it's important for us to be involved, to give back. And again, for students who are currently there, to have an outlet, another person they can reach out to if they need any assistance or just to talk.
I think for most of us, we grow up, like most BIPOC, grow up with the idea that we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. And I think it's important for students that are there now to recognize that their ancestors aren't that much older than them.
I would add that I think it's important because in addition to giving back and all of those things, but I don't think I truly understood how meaningful that connection was to me until it was gone. Like Maya was saying earlier, I didn't even understand how impactful those connections were to me until I left UNC Asheville. And also I think it's important to allow current and future students to be able to not make some of the same mistakes that I did. How I'm thinking how helpful something like this would have been when I was starting back in 2014. So hopefully it will allow, some new incoming students to be able to connect to some of the resources a little early on.
But Tim, I just want to say your mistakes led you here. So you did something right. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like, I was there working during the era of Maya and Tim being there. And so while they talk about, some of the things they could have worked on, I also witnessed some of the greatness, some of the great things that they did there to contribute to the UNCA community and Asheville community as well. So don't let them fool you. They've done some good things there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But some of the people on this call, they know the mistakes I'm talking about. So, but thank you so much.
And just real fast, before I move on and we start Q&A, let me also extend my gratitude to you, Tim, because without you, I wouldn't have gotten this job. So thank you very much. I appreciate that you saw something in me that made you feel confident that I could sort of, create these types of spaces for students of color and for students in general through my work with OMA. So I appreciate you endlessly. Don't ever forget it. I'm very proud of you. Now, before I get emotional, now we are going to open up for questions. I know we have one at least in the chat, so I'm going to kick it over to Elizabeth to read off those questions. And we have, let's see, We have about 15 minutes, so we'll give about 10 minutes to get through some of these questions.
Great. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to all these great pieces of advice from our alumni. Right now, we have one question that I'll read from chat. And if you haven't put your question in yet, there's still time to drop it in the chat bar. This comes from our current student body president, London Newton. London, I'm so glad you can join us. And her question is wondering some tips that our panelists might have, or institutional knowledge, just to make sure that the hype doesn't die down and initiatives get lost as students graduate.
I'll take this one. Number one, London, you and I, we still need to establish our meeting and we need to get on each other's calendar. But London, I want to tell you this because I know just from speaking to faculty and staff that are still on campus that things have shifted since like the 2016-17 era left. But I do want to say that, like, London, look at you, look at the position that you're in, and look at the people who came before you. So somebody's got to fact check me on this. I think there had been like 3 Black student body presidents before me. And I graduated in 2016. We had Tim as a VP the year after, Tim as president the year after that. And then we've had Michael, we have you, and I can't remember the president right before you, honey. I know he was Isaiah. There we go. Thank you, Luke. But look at that trajectory from 2016 to 2020. Like, it's still there. You might not feel it, but I promise you it's there. And the work that we do here on campus, I mean, like, look at Marquis. All of us know Marquis. All of us know the work that Marquis has done. All of us have been touched by Marquis because we always, as Black alum, I see us as the main ones who give back to our university. And the work that we do, Isaiah is now UNC System C, look at him. The work that we do does not leave that university. The student union that you all are sitting in now, I've touched it. Tim's work has touched it. Michael's work has touched it. We're always there. So when you feel like you're alone, because I know that feeling, when you feel as though people don't care, when you feel like all of the work that you're doing on campus, no one's coming to your events, people are watching and people feel it. You just have to stay steadfast. And again, find your community to help you. Because like we said at the very beginning, when people say that they want to help you, they mean it, especially at Asheville. So take heed to that and find your allies on campus. We can have a discussion about that later because they're there. Both Black, white, Latino, orange, blue, Rob. So that's what I have to say about that.
I'll add, I know you didn't know this, Maya, but we've had at least four other Black presidents during the 90s, during my time there and before. So we've had, and they've done some tremendous work and been involved. So London, you are among great people. I'm telling you, you have a great connection. Definitely reach out, especially the 2 former presidents here. Definitely reach out and make a connection with them because you have that support system there to help you to kind of move the agenda along.
There's a great follow-up question that was just dropped into our chat box by Albert Chow. And he asks, adding to that question, how can student groups facilitate an effective transfer of institutional knowledge from one leadership group to another? Great question, Albert.
Write it down, please. Create like a book of business for your organization or for the group that you're in. I was in HOSA, I was in Shades of Color, and as student body president, write down your work and the people that you've worked with.
Yeah, that's great advice, Maya. I worked at UNC Charlotte for a while, and one of the groups that I helped to form was the Building Better Brothers program. But in that, it was trying to make sure that we had some longevity. So even when this first group of guys started, that the torch will be passed on. And so writing those things down, like she said, is very important. But then making plans to come back. And so some of those guys and then women as well that felt strongly about make sure that organizations continue. Come back to this day. Every year, there's alumni that come back and mentor the individuals. So they're never gonna, I mean, it's not gonna shut down. It's not gonna, these are organizations that are never gonna go away as long as alumni are coming back and serving. And then we have that same mentality that we're gonna continue to support those as they make way. And then they're staying connected in the work world as well. So it's not just about, hey, this is just what we do when we're at this particular university. This is what are we gonna do for the future? So I think thinking long-term will help. Not thinking like, oh, this is what I'll do the next 4 years. This is what I'm gonna do for a lifetime. So if you have that mindset, you think a big picture, then your organization is gonna last. The movement, anything that you're starting can last if you have a group of people who are like-minded.
I would add to that, like, yes, transition documents, super important. Like, they were so helpful. But I would add, like, the importance of mentorship and relationship building. I think that was something that was really, really important for me. So throughout all of my sort of involvement journey, like, I never felt like I was by myself. Like, I always had someone that I could, go back and ask questions to, even with SGA. So Michael was a mentee of mine. Isaiah was a mentee of his. I don't know how many times I sat on the phone with Michael Davis, throughout his presidency, answering questions and things like that. So I think that's a good way to make sure that knowledge is transferred, is building those relationships and then maintaining those connections even after you have left the institution.
Great responses. Thank you all. We have 2 more questions, and it looks like we have time for both of those. And we do want to be respectful of time. The next question comes from our current Alumni Board of Directors Chair, Kenya Edwards, who asked the question, what are some self-care tips you would give to students who are stressed during this time? So Korita, I'm going to ask you to answer that question, please.
I would go with put down your phone and walk away. Take a break. Like, I think one of the things that is doing the biggest disservice to young people right now is how connected they really feel like they have to be at every moment of the day. And sometimes they just need to breathe.
Thank you. And for this next question, I'm going to ask Amarra if you would please answer. How did your community building skills serve you as an undergrad?
Sure. Before I answer that, I'm just gonna kind of say especially if you're in Asheville, go take a hike. Like, literally, when people say, oh, go take a hike. Yeah, literally go take a hike, because you are in the mountains. And really, that's one thing I kind of regret. Like, I was just always in the library all the time. And when I would leave, I would see the view and I'm like, wow, this is just enough for me to feel good. But seriously, go outside. But how did community building skills serve me after undergrad? Really, I was like kind of like an extroverted introvert kind of. So, if I had to be center stage, I'll do it, but I wasn't like happy about it. But really being part of the MSA and being part of like these other collective communities on campus really enabled my like love for community, local community, and how can I serve my neighbors? And that's kind of what I do right now, serving the refugee population that are, coming to Charlotte. Like, they are coming with like almost nothing and kind of traumatized backgrounds. So how are we cultivating a community, but also not showcasing my privilege? Oh, you should do this and that. You should assimilate to this community and to this space without knowing, what they're going through. So I think just that community building where I was working with different folks, different people from all different kinds of environments. We had a diversity of not just color, ethnic group, and religion, but like really just even financial background and whatever it is. Like, just really putting myself in those spaces helped me become more of a passionate person and more compassionate person for other people. Like, everyone has a story. Every single person, even on this panel, even whoever's listening, is all going through it. Right now, we're being, highlighted as like alumni who have been doing great things. We're mentors and this and that. But every single person on this panel, I probably can say, has had a meltdown, has had a breakdown. But the only way we can stay connected is to understand somebody else's story. you know, your story isn't the only one that exists. It's literally someone across the street can have something so different, but really just having a constant community connection, conversation with people, go into those vulnerable and really uncomfortable positions, uncomfortable conversations, so you can learn about one another. And I don't think I could have done that without forcing myself to be in those spaces. So, you know, it's not so much you know, I really like this idea of being very intentional with what you do. When you go in with good intentions, that will serve you. You will get that same energy, vibes, you know, back to you. So really just like putting yourself in those uncomfortable spaces is the only way you're going to be compassionate with one another. And that will literally serve you. Like, I'm in corporate America and I still need to find that compassion somewhere with those spaces too. And I'm sure everyone has their 9 to 5 and then their passion projects afterwards. So yeah, this has really helped me be, you know, sometimes just being, sometimes, you know, you need to be a listener. Sometimes you don't always have to have the mic. So this is one space that I think, you know, UNC Asheville really helped me understand, yeah, I can have the mic, but sometimes it's okay just to be a listener. And I only did that because I forced myself in those situations. Or like Maya said, I was dragged in those situations. I was pushed into those situations. So that's kind of how those gaps closed in my adult life now. So hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much, Amarra. At this point, we're going to move towards the end of our program. We had 2 more questions that we're running out of time to answer. So I'm going to suggest that we include some answers to those in a follow-up email after this event concludes. At this time, we have an ending poll question. So I'm going to launch the ending poll and ask everyone to answer a couple of these questions while I make some final remarks. And as we conclude, I just again want to say what an incredible evening. As the first in 4 of our diversity development series, we had 54 folks register. We had a lot of alumni students. We even had staff and faculty. Dr. Thais Ruffin, I'm just so grateful that you are part of this, and we'll make sure to follow up with your question in the Q&A. Thank you for being here with us. Also, thank you to the Office of Multicultural Affairs, Megan Pugh and Luke Gibbons, as well as the UNC Asheville Alumni Board of Directors. A lot of thought went to get us to where we are right now. If we were here in person at this point, I would present each of our panelists with a gift bag, just as a nod of gratitude for your time and being with us tonight. So please check your mailboxes. One will be mailed soon to you shortly with some alumni really cool items for you. And I also want to announce that if this was an in-person event, we'd probably do a door prize. So in your chat box, I've posted the links to Office of Multicultural Affairs and UNC Asheville alumni social media. And I ask that if you enjoyed tonight and want to give us a shout out on social media, what we'll do if you tag us on any one of those, 7 social media channels, we'll enter your name in a drawing and we'll send the winner also a gift bag full of UNC Asheville branded goodies. So encourage you to always follow us on social media. If you go to unca.edu/alumni events, you'll see this is one of 26 events that are offered this fall to our alumni. So I really want to encourage you to put some of those on your calendar, especially Tuesday, September 1st, same time, 7 p.m. for the second of our diversity development series. So and in conclusion, we hope that you continue to keep in touch with your alma mater. We have the ability as students and as alumni, as faculty and staff, to make UNC Asheville a stronger university. And I think just this event tonight has added to the strength of UNC Asheville. So thank you all for what you do. I hope you stay engaged with us. I'm going to drop the alumni email in the chat as well. If there's ever anything my office can do to help you, we're here to keep you connected to UNC Asheville. So thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.